All right, so this is story time, right? Story time. Story time, story time. We're going to have a story time while we're on the main menu of Team Fortress 2. Story time. So, so some of you may know, some of you guys may not know. I had a job. I've had several jobs, but one of my jobs was I was a lifeguard for the city of Chicago. And lifeguarding is really boring. Contrary to popular belief, nothing happens when you're a lifeguard. It's really boring. You just stand around and look at people all day. The most you ever do when you're a lifeguard is give a person a band-aid because they cut their feet on a bottle that's in the sand or something. Um, so I'm on break. We're doing nothing in the beach house because that's what you do on break, and we're just sitting there and chilling. And we're about like 5 minutes before we have to go out on call and do a rotation. And this guy on a bicycle just rides up to our beach house and knocks on our door, and it's just like, "Hey, someone's drowning by the pool. Like someone's in trouble." Well, he didn't say drowning. He said like someone's in trouble by the pier, and we're like, "What?" Here's how the layout of the beach is. We have the beach that's right in front of us, and then there's the pier, and then there's the opposite side of the pier. We can't see anything going on that side of the pier because there's a pier in the way. So the guy like rides up and he's just like, "Yeah, man, there's someone in trouble by the pier on the other side of the pier, and I think he needs help." And they like called the police and stuff. And we're like, "What the fuck? This is serious. This is the first situation where we're like, oh my god, someone might be drowning at our beach," which doesn't happen. That like happens once a year at one of the random beaches, and then everyone gets fired. So we're like, "Oh shit, we gotta actually do our jobs." So we didn't have a rescue can in our beach house, which is a major no-no. A rescue can is just a little plastic tube that you hold on to and you throw it out to people that need help. We needed a rescue can. So, because I was the runner, I had to run down to the waterfront and go to someone that was on call that was doing patrols and take his rescue can and then run all the way to the pier, which is a long run. And then everyone else, because we split into two groups, everyone else went over to the pier to go help the dude. So I run down all the way down to the sand. I get the rescue can, and the guy's just like, "Yo, what's happening?" Because we never have everyone running around like this. So he's like, "Oh my god, what's happening?" We're just like, "I don't know what the fuck's happening." They said someone by the pier is in trouble. And so I get the rescue can, and I run over there. And so because I have to get the rescue can, I'm the last one there. So I run over there, and I have the rescue can. I'm like, "All right, here's the rescue can. What do we do?" And everyone's just standing on the pier and looking down. And I'm like, "Well, if someone was drowning, everyone would be in the water, right?" So I run up, and I'm like, "Okay, what do I do? Here's the rescue can." And I look down, and I see a jet ski, and then I see a 300-pound man in the water next to his jet ski with a life vest on, and he's just chilling next to the jet ski. And everyone's just looking down and staring at him. And then one of our lifeguards jumped in the water, and so she's like next to him and like treading water next to him and stuff. And we're all just standing there and no one's talking. And then I'm like, "What's going on?" And the guy's just like, "I can't get back on my jet ski." And none of us knew what to do. We couldn't believe it. We were all just staring at him. At this guy, he was too big to get back on the jet ski because the jet ski would flip over every time we tried to get on it because he was like 300 pounds. So we told him, "All right, there's a ladder right next to you. Climb the ladder." But the ladder didn't have a step stool that was low enough for him. So he needed to pull himself up in order to reach the next step on the ladder. And he was too fat to be able to pull himself up. So he couldn't climb the ladder and he couldn't get back on his jet ski. So he was just sitting there. Now, while this is happening, mind you, our captain of the beach is still in the beach house because all he knows is that a guy rolled up on his bike and said, "There's someone in trouble by the pier." So, what he's supposed to do, he thinks someone's drowning, he has to call it in. And he also, after he called it in, he ran down to the water and took one of our rowboats and started rowing it out of the water, all the way out of the pier. You had to row it all the way out of the water and then around the pier and then come up to us. So he's in the rowboat rowing. No, and we have no way of communicating with each other. So what ends up happening next is bike cops show up. Because there are bike cops that patrol along the lakefront. The bike cops come up and they're like, "What is going on? What is happening?" And we're like, "There's a fat dude in the water and he can't get out." And the bike cops are just like, "Well, damn, I don't know what to do." And we're just like, "Well, yeah, we don't know what to do here either." What happens next is that the firemen arrive. And when I say firemen, I mean 2 fire trucks arrive. And they run up. And there's like 10 people here now. And they're like, "All right, what's going on?" And we're like, "There's a fat dude in the water. He can't get out." And they're like, "Well, shit. What do we do?" Next, the ambulance arrive. And the EMTs arrive and they bring a stretcher and they're like, "What's the sit rep?" And everyone's just standing around. So there's just a bigger crowd of people just staring down at this one guy who can't get back on his jet ski. So what happens next is the helicopter comes in. They called in the Coast Guard. A helicopter flies in. The helicopter flies in about 10 feet away from us. I'm not joking. They called in a helicopter. The helicopter comes in. There are 2 guys in full scuba gear that jump out of the helicopter and into the water. And then they swim up to the guy and they're like, "What's the problem?" And the guy says, "I can't get up." And they're like, "Well, what the fuck do we do?" The helicopter flies away, leaves the 2 guys in the scuba gear in the water. And then 2 lifeguards from the beach that are next to us, 57th Street Beach, run down and they're like, "Hey, we got the emergency message. What's going on?" And so they ran all the way down from their beach, which is like 4 miles. And we're like, "Yeah, there's a guy in the water. He can't get up." And they're like, "Well, what the fuck?" So what ends up happening is that the 2 guys in the scuba gear dive underneath the fat guy, and they get underneath him and they push him up. And they push him up high enough so that he can get footing on the ladder. And then the guy climbs the ladder and he finally gets out of the water. He's finally out of the water. So the police officers and the EMTs start rushing over to him. They're like, get the stretcher, get him on the stretcher, get him on the stretcher. And the guy gets up and he goes like, "I'm fine. I just couldn't get up the ladder." And everyone just disperses like they're on lunch. Like imagine in every video game where like everyone has aggro on you and then you lose aggro and everyone just turns around and goes back to the patrols. Everyone just goes like, "What?" And then they just start talking with each other and there's like, "Well, that was a fucking waste of time." There's like 20 people on the pier now. It's full of firemen, bike cops, actual cops, get fucked by cops, actual cops, EMT from ambulances, like people from other beaches, and then us. And we're all just standing around and not doing anything. So everyone just starts like talking to each other and just walks around. Like everyone just starts slowly walking back to the vehicles they came in on. So the firemen are walking back to the fire truck, the EMTs are walking back to their ambulance, and bike cops get on their bikes, and everyone else walks away. And the two guys, the scuba guys, because their helicopter left, they can't just jump back into a helicopter. A rescue boat, a Coast Guard rescue boat, just flies in because that thing goes like 1 billion miles per hour on the water. The Coast Guard rescue boat just zooms in. It just like does a quick 180, and then the front part of the boat just it detaches and it lowers down on the water, and the scuba guys like swim up to it and they get in, and then they just zoom off into the distance. So the situation has been resolved, right? But we still have two things. One, the guy can't get back on his jet ski, and the jet ski's still there. So what happens? Well, one of our mates, who was an upper in command, it's like a lifeguard plus, she decides, well, it's mine now. I'm gonna take it out for a spin. So she jumps in the water and just rides off into the sunset with the jet ski. So she's gone. And then, remember, our captain of the beach is on the rowboat rowing around. He finally makes it there when everyone is gone. And he's like, what happened? And we said, it was just a guy. He couldn't get back on his jet ski. Everything's fine. He's here now. And he's like, well, shit. Now I have to row this boat all the way back over. And so he just turns it around and starts rowing back. And then we're just like, all right, well, that was one crazy break. Let's go back to work. So we have to walk back. We have to walk all the way back and then change shifts. And everyone that was on shift is just like, yo, what the fuck just happened? Did someone die over there? And we're just like, man, we cannot even begin to tell you what just happened. Just go into the break room and you'll get filled in later. And like 2 hours later, our mate arrives back with the jet ski and then drops the jet ski off. And we're like, hey, you know you're not supposed to do that, right? Because she always did really dumb stuff that would get us in trouble. And she was just like, like, all right, you're fucking dumb. She just disappeared while she was on call, like during an emergency on someone else's jet ski. And she just like dipped out and went on a jet ski ride. And our captain finally makes it back in with the rowboat. And everyone just left. Everyone, look, we never saw the guy again. He like came back and picked up his jet ski like hours later. The jet ski was just like beached on the beach. It was just sitting there. Beach on the beach. And like the guy came back and like took his jet ski and rode off like a little bit long. Like it was a hot mess, dude. It was a hot mess. And the thing that I regret the most about it to this day is that I couldn't record any of it. Because as a lifeguard in the city of Chicago, if you are caught with any electronic on you, a phone or anything, you get fired on the spot. So I couldn't record any of that. And that was, that's the story of the guy that, fell off his jet ski when I was lifeguarding at the beach. He couldn't get out of the water, man.